She's
And it's going to prompt me from the side if I'm messing up, so we're good. And I'm drinking coffee, just in case.
Rob.
But it's not coffee.
Yes.
Scotch. I'm more nervous about the.
So like all the shows, like there are shows this week, say 9 o'clock.
On our Facebook page?
Like you know how the artist makes an event. Okay,
Rob.
Yes.
9 o'clock.
Erica was getting an.
I am.
Oh,
There she is,
great.
okay.
Fantastic. And it's just Benny left then.
Yes.
Erica was getting.
Yeah, she's on now. Yeah, we got her now.
Have we got everybody?
Benny left then.
Rob, your volume is the only one I can't really hear very well, but
Oh, okay. Thank you. Let me just adjust that accordingly. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Is that better? Yeah.
a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, she's on now. Yeah, we got her now.
Have we got everybody?
Rob?
So we're missing Benny Johnson, and I'm just trying to reach him on email.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone that's joined the webinar. Thank you so much. We're just getting our last person online here, and then we'll be going shortly. There's Benny right now. Wonderful. Great.
Hey,
Sorry,
hi,
guys.
Benny.
Technical difficulties here, but I'm here.
Awesome.
Good. And have we got some visitors in the audience, Rob?
Yeah, we've got 28 on so far.
Okay,
One.
shall we just get started and people will come in as they manage to figure out how to, which seems to be the case with these Zoom meetings.
Sounds good. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this special Music Mile session. We're still standing. My name is James Rex Seidler. I'm a musician, songwriter, and recording artist for the rock act Rayo in Calgary and a member of the board of directors for the Music Mile. We're very pleased to have you here and all of our panelists from wherever they are in the world. With the latest COVID-19 numbers, of course, on the rise, an impending second wave, the future of live music and social gathering just seems to be continual in a state of potential jeopardy. So the question we'd like to find out today is, are we really at the end, or are we at the beginning of how we might think about live performance and how to reach audiences in meaningful ways and keep live music going? So as far as we're concerned, we're still standing. Yes, we are, but where to go from here? We certainly hope today's session creates a great dialogue and some learning opportunities to ask that question. What is the future for live music and the businesses that support it with all their heart? We look forward to the discussion and welcome our panelists to help shape and provide insight to their own realities in their marketplace and what they are doing to adapt and shift. So thank you for joining us wherever you are in the world. Just a few housekeeping notes. If you have questions for specific panelists or for anyone on the Music Mile board, the question and answer feature will allow you to do that, and we'll try to direct the questions to whoever you might ask it for. And there's obviously the chat opportunity to chat with other people that are in the session as well, and we'll try to monitor that as well for any questions that might arise for any of the panelists, or just questions in general that are worth discussing. So without further ado, welcome to We're Still Standing. I'm going to turn it over to our board president and moderator for this afternoon, Meg Van Rosendaal.
Thanks, James, and welcome to everybody out there in the audience. We can't all see you, but you can see our wonderful panel assembled for today. I'll just tell you in advance that Mayor Nenshi is going to drop in at some point. We don't know exactly when, and we'll give him a space to speak a little bit at that time. Before I introduce the panelists, you may notice that already there's some chat going on the side of your screen, and the questions are going to come in through the Q&A function at the bottom of everybody's Zoom screen. Panelists, don't you worry about trying to type answers. If you have an answer, we'll put you live on to answer it in person. And in the audience, once we get to the question section, if you would like to direct your question to somebody in particular, let us know. So here we go. I'd like to introduce the panelists in alphabetical order because they're all stellar. And interestingly, the first three all are from Calgary. You know how in any organization, any ecosystem, there's always a few people that rise to the top that everybody knows and that seem to have an energy that drives the whole rest of the community? Well, our first three panelists that I'm going to introduce you to are those people in Calgary. Kaylee Biesigo is the lead consultant for West Anthem, and I don't know how many of you have read the recent report that they released in October. It's a music ecosystem study for Alberta. There she's showing it to you, and it's online on the westanthem.com website, so it's really worth a read. West Anthem is an organization that aims to maximize the impact of music on Alberta cities, and it couldn't be more timely. Kaylee is also the principal consultant at Bird Creative. She's a wonderful performing musician, and she played a huge role on Music Mile last year in programming dozens of off-country weekend events during the 2019 Canadian Country Music Awards. Next, I'd like to introduce, so welcome, Kaylee. Next, I'd like to introduce Benny Johnson. I could probably spend the whole webinar telling you what Benny's done. He's best known as the founder of 10 at 10, which is a hip hop showcase, which I first knew of in, I don't know, was it started in 2007, 2005, 2001. I can remember the first time I went, and what an incredible scene. I love 10 at 10. Benny is also a rap and spoken word artist, and Avenue magazine named him one of Calgary's 40 under 40, saying that he has developed some of the most respected and unique cultural entertainment experiences in the urban arts and Black community. And I won't list them all, but I do want to read you my favorite line from his bio on his website. I'm a bona fide creative, idea acrobat, and momentum maker. My purpose is to amplify others. Isn't that terrific? I love it. And the third of our Calgary panelists is Pat McIntyre. Pat is the owner of one of Calgary's best loved live music clubs, the Ironwood Stage and Grill. His bio is short, but his reputation is very long. He's responsible for giving thousands of artists a stage, and they love him for it, as we all saw when they hosted a fundraiser for the Ironwood. And I must tell you that if you can ever get him up on stage to play his harmonica, he plays a mean harp. So welcome to the three Calgary panelists. And next I'd like to introduce Micah McKee. Rob Skeet, who's on our board and who's running this webinar today, met Micah in New Orleans when Micah was playing. And so Micah is a native New Orleans, how do you say Orleanian? Orleanian. And a musician for almost 20 years with Little Maker, The Essentials, and Baby Grand. He's also the host and producer of the Songwriting in Popular Music podcast, America 100. And he can tell you how to access that. Nice to have you sort of in Calgary, Micah. Next, I'd like to introduce Erica Wallum-Nichols. Now, I don't know you, Erica, but from your bio, I sure would like to. I first heard of you when a Nashville friend of mine referred me to the Source website. And on that website, you can find all these amazing women who've been inducted into the Music Hall of Fame. And you were one who caught my eye, so I sent you a note, and happily you said you'd join us today. In her many roles with Nashville Songwriters Association International, which is a website you should all look at. Man, it's interesting. Nashville Songwriters Association International. Erica is currently the GM of the legendary Bluebird Cafe. I've never been there, but our good friend Bob Chartier, when he was there a number of years back, he's never stopped talking about it. It's his dream music venue. She was also program director for the Nashville Summer Lights Festival. She ran Tin Pan South for a number of years. She's worked at the Country Music Hall of Fame. Plus, she's an actress and filmmaker, and she recently got an MFA. So there's a nice rounded resume. So welcome, Erica, and all of you to Music Mile and this conversation. So let's start with the last one I introduced. Let's start with Erica. Oh, and look who we have sitting down in the corner. Good afternoon, Mayor Nenshi. There's a fellow who doesn't need any introduction, except maybe to Erica and Micah. This is our mayor, Naheed Nenshi.
Hello, everyone.
Who is a fantastic champion of the arts in Calgary. Mayor Nenshi, would you like to say a few words?
Well, Meg, you know better than to ask me if I would like to say a few words. When have I ever said no to that invitation? But I will be extraordinarily brief because I just heard the introduction of all these panelists, and there's lots of them. We don't have much time, and I want to hear as much from them as we possibly can. But I just wanted to say thank you to the out-of-town panelists for joining us, and thank you to the Calgarians who have been working so hard to think about how we can make live music work in a world that we never anticipated, in a world that is so beyond our imagining. But you know what? When we are far beyond our imagining, who do we turn to? We turn to the artists. We turn to the artists to help us figure out how to navigate, how to tell the stories of these crazy times, and how to move forward. I'm also incredibly concerned, as we all are, about the financial impact that this is having on musicians, on venue owners and operators, on promoters, on everyone who's involved with the music ecosystem. While our number one challenge has to be to make sure that everyone is safe, we also need to ensure that we come back stronger, that we come out of this really in a place that is resilient, that is powerful, that is allowing us to do our work. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen in the next short term, in the next few weeks. You know, I was both heartbroken and deeply brought up by the recent decision of our friends, Chris and Amber at Dickens, to voluntarily close down for a couple of weeks so that they can come back stronger. It was the right thing to do, but it's not a choice that everyone can make or that everyone can make easily. And I know so many have been working so hard to just try and keep business going and try and keep employment going, particularly for artists and musicians. So these are not easy questions. What I do know is that we have a tremendously strong music community in Calgary. I know that it will only grow better. I know that people are craving music and talent and art and being together. And even if that's not possible right this minute, and even if those Zoom concerts, and I've been going to a lot of them, are not the same as being in a big sweaty crowd, they are a way for us to experience the remarkable talents that we've got. So I wish I could tell you exactly what's going to happen. I can't. My crystal ball is as cracked as anybody's. But what I can tell you is that when we come out of this, we will come out of this with, and when, not if, when we come out of this, we will come out of it with an even stronger appreciation of the people who make life worth living. And so much of that is our artists, and so much of that are the promoters and the venue operators and everyone who makes that art happen and who helps artists communicate with their community. So I could go on forever, but you got a big panel. I want to say thank you, especially to the Music Mile. I want to say thank you to my hero, Meg Van Rosendaal, who has been such a voice for the arts and for a more vibrant community for so very long. Yay, Meg. And I'll turn it right back to you now, Meg.
Thanks for coming. Jump in if you're still on the conversation. Jump in anytime. Erica, I'll hand the stage over to you. Oh.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me and allowing me to be a part of it. I have been to Canada in several different provinces, and every time I've been to an event in Canada, I always come back saying, wow, Canadian artists are just so much more fun than American artists. And I mean that in a loving way, in terms of the creativity, energy, and sense of humor that I have found in performers and artists from Canada. So it's really exciting to be with you all, to take some of that energy away. For us, I don't know if you want me to give a little rundown of what we've been doing at the Bluebird, or how you'd like me to proceed, but Meg, can you give me a little bit of guidance?
Well, we're happy to hear you talk about anything that's relevant to this conversation, because we can't know what your reality is. But if you want to talk about your role in the music industry, the issues that you're facing, I imagine they're the same as all of ours. But particularly what we're looking for is adaptive tactics and changes that you've tried that have worked or that haven't worked, and what you think about, is it going to be business as usual when we're over COVID? Are we going to keep some of the things we've learned? That kind of thing. Anything you want to talk about?
Okay. Well, for you all who are familiar with the Bluebird or not, we're a 90-seat venue. So we have always talked about the Bluebird as a room where people are together. And really our room, language like cuddled up together, or sharing, a tiny space with 90 people. So our room seats 90 people. We fill every seat in the room. We have to in order to make our revenue. And part of that experience of the Bluebird is actually the physicality of it. People, when they are that close together, there's an energy that fills the room and allows them to experience something in the storytelling and in the music that I think larger venues don't have. So great selling point for us up until March. And then bad selling point for us because nobody does want to cuddle up at this point. So I shut the doors in March 13th, and we have not been open since. I've created next year's budget with an opening for July of next year. And that, I don't know if that's possible or if there's any way to circumvent that, but that would be, at least that's what we've budgeted on, and hope not to lose more than maybe $500,000. I don't know. Nashville's a different market for sure. And we're lucky because we have songwriters everywhere. And a room like the Bluebird would have a really hard time functioning, I think, other places in the kind of shows we do. We're 7 nights a week, 2 shows a night. And many of those shows are designed to provide opportunity for up and coming writers. So Meg, as you're, sort of laying that out, from my perspective, so as we're going forward, we're streaming some shows. We're looking at, what kind of live performance we might be able to do. Right now, we're in partnership with a larger venue called Third and Lindsley. If any of you are familiar with that room in Nashville, they are a 500 plus capacity, and they've taken their seating down to half, but we're selling 185 tickets. So the show is Bluebird on Third. And we've done 4. We're doing 2 more before the Christmas holiday. And those have sold out. People, the way we've constructed them is really trying to look at our mission, which is up and coming writers plus the well-known writers who really drive the ticket sales. So we do 3 up and coming writers, people that have passed our auditions or maybe are on our early shows. And then we close it with a set of 3 writers in a row who have had hit songs, well-known names. And I think that's one of my takeaways, is that our mission is not just to be a performance space. It is a room that provides opportunity, kind of a lab for people, because as I described the situation, everybody cuddled in together. When you are sitting in the center of the room, like we do much of the time, you can tell if your song is working by the people in your face, literally. And so it's important to us to continue to provide that up and coming opportunity for our writers. We just did an open mic last night, which is our 3rd open mic. We're doing it on the 3rd Monday of the month. Ours are usually every Monday when we're live, and doing that via Stage 10. We're getting writers from all over the world, which is exciting, and continuing to try and tell that story of opportunity and a stage where people actually listen to the writers, not just the hit songs that they hear on the radio, but actually listen and respect the heart that people are doing when, and you guys know this from knowing performance. I mean, when people are on stage, they're getting up on stage, and oftentimes for the Bluebird, it's their very first performance. And it's like they're getting up there and taking all their clothes off in front of a room full of people. And what can we do to continually provide those opportunities? So that's a little bit of where we are. I will say, just to not take up too much more time, we've had a very supportive city. We have had other folks from the city. So our city created a program called Music City Bandwidth, and 15 of us local small venues participated, and we got a grant, each of us from the city, for providing these 2 months of shows, which was amazing. We got $50,000 to provide these shows and the promotion for the shows. That was one opportunity that was amazing. We also had a car dealership with the vice president who just felt like our live music was suffering. And he created this campaign called drivethemusicnashville.com. And that's a new website, and he's selling t-shirts, and the venues are going to split that revenue. They filmed all of us doing little interviews and really have provided an opportunity for us all to tell our story and to let people know sort of how important it is to have these small stages that are continuing to, try and cling on, so that, as you say, as the mayor said, when this is over, we're back and we're not losing ground for our people more than anything. And then our opportunity to keep our stages viable.
That's a lot of good information in there, and I'll follow up with
That
you
wasn't too much.
on a couple of the links. Let's go now to Micah in New Orleans. Go ahead.
Hi. So Erica, thank you for that amazing rundown of what Nashville is doing. Nashville is one of my favorite cities to perform in, and Third and Lindsley is awesome, and it's just amazing to hear. We in New Orleans are a very tradition-based culture. So this has really upended a lot of the lifestyles of musicians here. New Orleans is older than the country itself of the United States. So we've had a tough time adjusting to this new normal. We're also not a wealthy city, so it's been particularly challenging. To make matters more challenging, our safety regulations are a bit labyrinthine, right? There's no singing or windblown instruments allowed indoors, which, when you have a city that, half the musicians in town are brass bands and brass musicians, people are just confused as to what to do. So I think, for one, COVID has exposed how we view arts as a society. We can all agree on that. And so this is going to take us stepping back and reevaluating how we value the arts in our society and in our culture. But as New Orleans is concerned, a lot of folks have been opting for outdoor venues and having venues, local clubs sponsor little satellite bars outdoors, which is on the rise. As I mentioned earlier before the chat, this morning we got the announcement that Mardi Gras is canceled. So a lot of folks are trying to figure out what that means, especially for brass bands. Now, street musicians are protected under our Constitution. So, you know, that is an avenue that folks can take. However, street musicians are reliant on tourism. They're reliant on folks coming into town, and they're reliant on tips. So we're trying to figure out how to make the street musician lifestyle and the outdoor venue thing work for us. How do we actually, you know, come together as a city and say, we're going to become a local-based economy instead of a tourist-based economy? It's been a complete shift. And for so long, New Orleanians relied on tourism almost solely in our entertainment industry, and we didn't have a you know, an entertainment infrastructure that was self-reliant. And this was a thing that we have been a lot of folks have been talking about for a long time. Now, folks like me, like I'm a songwriter, so my job hasn't changed that much. You know, I was playing on stage 3 times a week, but outside that, my job hasn't changed all that much. It's when you get down to folks who are session musicians, who are brass band, you know, side musicians, they don't know what to do. You know, they don't have home studios. They don't have, they're not writers, right? So they're looking for the gig. And so we've had to actually shift how we think about our local economy. And that has been really, really challenging. You know, my biggest concern is public safety and public health, no matter what. If you don't have a healthy community, you cannot have a healthy economy. And I think I think we're learning that. It's definitely an issue going forward to, like I said, just trying to figure out how do we change our economy to fit this very unique situation.
Yeah. Thank you. There's, you know, already we're pulling links between what you're saying, and you're a city that's summer most of the year, and we're a city that's winter a lot of the year. But there are still things that we can apply from what you're saying.
Yeah, that's another, that just not to, I forgot to mention that's another thing that is in our favor, right? Is that we actually can have outdoor events in January. And so we're looking at that, and that's a huge upside for us.
Yes, yes. Next, let's talk to Pat McIntyre from the Ironwood Stage and Grill in Calgary. Can't hear you.
Hello.
We have sound.
Okay. Thanks a lot for inviting me to be part of this panel. You know, we've I opened the Ironwood in 2006, and you know, we do 9 shows a week traditionally, and you know, across a wide variety of genres. And looking at some of the things that Erica and Micah were saying, like the one thing about collaborating with people and just sort of getting together as a community. We've always sort of worked together here in Calgary, you know, no one wants to step on each other's toes, but they also want to help each other and promote each other, which is something that's extremely important. But like Micah was saying, you know, we're not a tourist-based economy, but juxtapose that, there is a lot of touring bands that do drive our music industry, which I find that, you know, with the travel restrictions and everything that goes along with that, that presents its own unique challenges. So that you want to keep all the venues going and keep the crowds coming out. But you also don't want to overplay the local musicians so that there is variety out there. Some people are in a fortunate circumstances where they do a variety of styles, and so that opens up a lot more of the repertoire that's available to them. So focusing on unique and the musicians that are out there that are you know, original, and I think that's something that the musicians that make their living off of music are the people that we have to kind of focus on and try and find a way to get people out to support that. And there are unique challenges in it. I mean, I built a little aquarium there so that we can have 2 singers or a keyboard. I had Elton John in there and Rob Skeet in the spring, and it worked out, even though you know, some of his feather boas got stuck in the curtains, but it all worked out. But I think you know, we do have some unique challenges ahead, and I think that, you know, with what's going on right now, I don't think this is going to change in the future. Like, even after, you know, we get a vaccine, I think there's still going to be a lot of people who are trepidatious about going out and listening to live music or being in a bigger crowd. So I think that's something we got to look forward, not forward to, but we have to look forward and try and find a way to mitigate that. I know, Erica, I've been to the Bluebird, and I too have a small venue. Mine is 150. We're down to 50 right now. But having people crammed together, and depending on the crowd, I mean, if you want to look at the average age of the crowd in each different venue, that's something that you know, you have to be cautious of, because older people are going to be more worried because they're not going to want to be crammed together. So I think those are some of the things that when we do move on after the end of this, it's still not going to be an end. I don't think there'll be an end until we're all dead from old age, hopefully, and not from COVID. But we're always going to remember that. You know, you talk to people after World War I, World War II, and you read their bios and that, you know, that's something that affected their whole life afterwards. So I think this is something that will affect people's lives that are of age, and that's something that we have to find ways, even in the middle of the pandemic, to find ways that will encourage and also you know, make people feel safe when they come out. And I like what Micah said, insofar as I don't really care what the government regulations are. I'm going to do what I can to keep my customers and my staff safe and my musicians safe. So, you know, if people are living somewhere where it's a devil-may-care attitude, I'm not going to adhere to that. I'm going to, you know, I wouldn't say above and beyond. I'm going to do what's necessary to keep people safe. And I think that's something that we have to look at, that when you do shut down, and when you look at places, Dickens shut down because they're more of a rock atmosphere, and they will have, you know, a lot more people wanting to get up and bounce around and socialize. And then you have venues like ours where everyone does sit for the most part, depending on the show, but it's quite adaptable. So we got to look at the best of both worlds on both sides there to find a way during the pandemic, follow the rules, and then find out what makes people comfortable and be cognizant of that. Take notes, see what people's concerns are, and listen to them when they come in, and create the dialogue with your customers, because no matter how much we can live stream and find innovative ways to get people to look at us and listen to music, I think it's important to we've all listened to the live streams early on in the pandemic, and there's nothing like a song ending with applause. When it ends with silence, it still doesn't feel like you're listening to music. So I just, I don't know, I think if we're all smart, talk to our patrons, talk to the people that we know in the industry and that, and find ways that we can work together and get things back to as close to normal at the end of this, then I think that's our best bet at getting things back to everyone just loving going out and listening to music.
Well, that's why we're all here. Pat, thank you. I'm not sure that everybody noticed what you were pointing out behind you, that Pat built not only in his own venue, but he helped a couple of others build a plexiglass booth, so that whenever he has wind instruments or singers on stage, they are in the booth. So even though they're inside, and so if you want pictures, just connect with Pat. I think I've sent you all each other's emails. He'll send you pictures of how he did the booths in a couple of locations. Shall we move on, please, to Kaylee? Kaylee.
Oh, sorry, Meg. I'm happy to jump in. I just feel like I'm going to echo a lot of what people are talking about, but I'll just a couple of thoughts and I guess comments on what I've been hearing. Is I'm really loving this theme of collaboration that's emerging. I think especially at times when people are struggling, it's really easy to become siloed. And so I would say that not only as like an individual venue or a person or a musician, but also as an industry. And so like Erica, when you're talking about the Bluebird and really talking about kind of this idea of abundance in a sense, you're looking at what do we have and how do you partner with other people to create these models that can work for multiple partners. And I always say that right now, this time is not about growth. We're not in a time of growth strategy. It's about survivability, it's sustainability. And so you might have to give a little to get something, but as long as we can help each other out and figure out models where we can survive so that all of our favorite venues and musicians come out the other side of this pandemic, that is so important to think about because, so when I talk about like silos, and even as an industry, that's a lot about the work we're doing with the Music Cities or a creative economy strategy is not thinking just about the industry, but how do we interact within an ecosystem or systems view? So, and I think that's one of the things that is a struggle for our industry and for our music venues right now is that there isn't a lot of understanding on a governmental or, necessarily like from the three levels of government, how our industry works, which is why we're seeing a lot of these groups come together to advocate for, the supports that, our venues need, because they're not structured as a typical not-for-profit, which has easier access to some of those government funding bodies. And, but what people don't realize or even like our own government on a provincial level is that music in 2017 was a $1.6 billion industry for our city alone. And so when you start to look at those numbers, it's like, we're not a nice to have, it's a need to have, because even how that encourages, when we have a strong music industry that encourages people to want to come and build businesses here, they want to live here, but it also brings dollars into our music venues and into our festivals and into our tourism. And so starting to think about how all of these industries interact on an ecosystem level, I think really will start to build that that value piece that music needs. And I think just, it's just there's so much opportunity, and I think maybe the one thing that I'm going to come from a place of abundance. What do I have to work with right now? Is that what has the pandemic given me? Is maybe, and I think all of us, is a time to reflect, because there is a lot of work that needs to be done, and I think if we can figure out how to survive and sustain in the meantime, maybe there is a window of opportunity to really strategize and think about, okay, well, when we're ready to come out the other side of this, how can we do better? How can we, better serve our stakeholders and ensure that, we're using all of our musical assets to our advantage. And so I don't really, I guess I'm more of in a stream of consciousness, because there's so much happening and so much impacting the industry right now. But one thing that's really been on my mind, just building from this, idea of like how we can get people to better understand our industry so that we can get the supports we need and get people to see the value, is this education piece around how our industry works and what the actual economic value is. I was in a meeting last week with the minister's office regarding the different, protocols that are in place for live music venues versus, what distinguishes them from a restaurant. Because I know that that's one thing that, Pat would know better than me, is I think there's been a lot of confusion around, people want to do the right thing. They want to keep their patrons safe. They want to do everything within their power to follow, the guidelines and restrictions. But when you look at, oftentimes to, I guess, industries that can sometimes sit side by side, like Pat, I know you act as a restaurant and a live performance venue. And now we're seeing restaurants starting to have, to host, live performers. And there are very different restrictions for both of those types of venues. And I think, one of the comments that was made on the call was that when they're looking at developing these protocols, it's around, they also have to look at like, what's the economic impact on the, I guess, that industry. And one thing that really shocked me is that they said, well, when we're looking at, music protocols and restaurant protocols, is that the economic impact from a restaurant point of view is so great. And, so when you're looking at, a live music or a, events type perspective, that it wasn't the same impact. And I was like, there's like, oh, they have to think about livelihoods versus, and I was like, you are talking about people's livelihoods. Like, there are so many people that work like in, full-time bands that are playing these venues or playing these restaurants on a nightly basis. There's so many, like venue owners, et cetera. And I was like, this is the wrong audience to say that to, because it is our livelihoods and their livelihoods. And there is really just not a clear understanding of, what the actual impact is for music, and not only on the industry right now, but also, what the economic impact on our city and our province is if we don't figure this out, because it's a huge influx of dollars. And anyway, so that's really what we're trying to advocate. But I'm really just verbal diarrheaing on all of you right now, because there's so much going on. But those are just some thoughts. But I think this idea of collaboration, like, we need to work together. We have to come up with really creative ideas and models on how we can sustain and survive. And so even if we're looking to, I love this idea of like live local and, a 15-minute city where everything you need is within 15 minutes. And I'm really trying to apply that to like every aspect of my life. So if that's like going to a restaurant down the street, or like listening to a live stream from a local band, or, heading down to the Ironwood, when it's safe to do so, I really want to encapsulate that not only in, how I shop for groceries, but also how I consume music right now to help make sure all of my favorite hotspots and musicians are on the other side of this pandemic.
That's great. We actually have a little graphic bug we've created that's listen local. And we haven't just started using it yet. Thanks, Kaylee. Let's go to last but not least, Benny Johnson. Can't hear you yet.
Hello, hello. It's always tough going last in these panel discussions because a lot of what you want to say gets iterated on. But let me marry some of these ideas here. What Kaylee was saying, exactly talking about the numbers. I think that's something that when people don't understand how important music is in the city, it really does become something that's more of an afterthought. And saying that, hey, this certain venue or these things are going to be in phase 3 means that an entire industry of people can't function without support. So I think some of the numbers were like 22,000 Canadians in the music industry are completely out of work in a lot of ways, or had to find, different things. So just like going back on the numbers thing. And it's really wild to think of Calgary having 1.6 or Alberta having $1.6 billion in the music industry when right now our venues are going out of business. Right now, the Hi-Fi Club, 15 years in this city, bringing some of the biggest acts in the world here to their little venue. But because there's not enough support just to pay rent, they're out of business. So I think when we say, how can we return after this? I think a lot of that is understanding what is our infrastructure? Who's really holding our city or our city's, cultural bed under it? And how do we support those things by, even if we need to purpose it for other things, maybe I know that there's been other people in our industry who have now kind of shifted and did their own pandemic pivot, and they've taken their relationships with bigger productions. So like they work for big productions around the country doing these big tours with bands and lighting crews and all these different kinds of things. And what they're doing now is creating pop-ups. So literally they're going into a venue or a bar and they're doing this massive pop-up situation. So Justin Huckaluck is doing it. He works with Live Nation, but now he's doing these as the pop-up series. And right now they're taking over Commonwealth, which I'm sure is helping Commonwealth pay their bills. But it's one of those things where now you have these world-class installations and you walk in and it's kind of like a cool thing. I haven't been there myself, but I'm aware, and we've talked about all of the things that he's trying to do with that concept. And that's, again, more private sector, more someone from the music industry trying to keep the music industry alive, instead of like our own infrastructure, our governments are supporting arts organizations, understanding what is going to be needed to kind of keep us all alive and keep us afloat. So it is about a lot of collaboration and having conversations about how can we better support each other, because not everybody knows what everybody does as well. Myself, I'm a curator, promoter, community builder. I don't own a specific venue, but my job kind of over the past 9 years has been, how do I activate, things more centrally in Calgary? A lot of Calgary's urban sprawl, a lot of Calgary's all these different areas, and because transportation is amazing, it makes it difficult for people to go to everything that's cool. So I've really tried to centralize a lot of, urban-based events. So whether that's spoken word poetry, R&B music, hip hop music, and it's not just the music, it comes with the dance culture, DJing, and the visual art. So we always try to create an experience so people can say, oh, hip hop's not that bad. It's not that negative. I always thought that it was this, and that. But when you actually get to experience it, then you're just like, wow, now I get it. Now I understand why it's the #1 genre in North America. But sometimes we don't reflect that in our own city, and it's hard to support those things when you don't know what you don't know. So yeah, I think it comes back down to mirroring what everybody's saying with collaboration and finding what everybody's up to, and finding better ways to take care of those institutions so that when this thing gets to some state of normalcy, that they're actually still around and that they haven't left the industry or been disenfranchised or taken away or anything like that. Because it's tough out here, man. Everyone's doing some crazy entrepreneurial adaptability voodoo just to even stay alive, and it's tough. So
It is, and that's what we're hearing from everybody. But it sounds like, that some of the things that you were talking about, the pop-ups, I mean, I hadn't even heard of that. So that's an interesting adaptation from a certain part of the sector of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry.
No, I just wanted to jump in because I love that idea too. And I also like what Erica was saying about how they're doing these outdoor events and having venues sponsor different bars. Like that's like
really
that kind of stuff.
Community helping the community out, right? So, and that part is awesome, but it'd be really cool too, if, like you said, like that government understood, that like the music venue is not just like an afterthought where people drink alcohol, that it's actually more so that's part of the experience of getting to know new people and, you know, other parts of the human experience that are necessary that you're only going to get in those venues. So,
yeah. You know, I think that Calgary has a great advantage in that we have West Anthem working on establishing this baseline for the music industry, this picture of the whole ecosystem in Alberta. And so I think we can start working more with West Anthem to establish those relationships with government and help them understand the importance of the economic impact of our industry. And Benny, how do you connect with community in Calgary?
So right now, I mean, what we've done, obviously people are super inundated with the live stream. You know, let's put everything live, let's kind of go ahead and do those things. And the way that we've kind of done it is we've done more private screenings and we've helped artists find their own community, their own, I guess, viewership, and then create these like mini shows for them versus the kind of open live stream that at this point is getting like 20 viewers and stuff like that because everybody is online now. So your attention is way shorter. So we've been working with just individual artists to help them do their own individual music releases. That's kind of been the way that we've done it on that side. And I've actually spent more time because I'm not producing events, just working one-on-one with artists. So helping them on their own growth. A lot of what Calgary needs is, you know, industry on the urban and hip hop side. I think all artists require, you know, good A&Ring and obviously help and support from that overall aspect, but especially in hip hop and R&B. So I've spent a lot of time doing that more so than producing events and shows, because I've seen also the restaurants are doing a good job now of doing both a live show, sometimes a live stream. So I'm allowing them to go ahead and take over whatever they need to allow their venue to survive. And what we're doing is just working with people that we think are actually taking their career seriously and trying to push them in that aspect of it.
Yeah.
And then the other side, at the beginning of the pandemic, we got a brand new office that is literally an incubator stage, all these different things. And we haven't released it to the public yet because of liability, like both Pat and Micah were talking about, is like it's very difficult to say you want the community to come together, but you want everyone to be safe at the same time. So I'm very cognizant of just being like, let's just chill until it's a little bit better before we kind of open up the doors to everything. So that's kind of what
it sounds like you're all really compassionate towards your clients, audiences, artists, everyone. That's terrific. One other thing about Calgary is that this Music Mile Society is a nonprofit society, and I think that has proved useful during the pandemic because A, people know each other. We have a built-in network. B, we've been able to raise a bit of money, and we will certainly try to raise more to help venues and artists. And it is, the collaboration itself has proved to be supportive. I had one venue owner say, "You have no idea how important it is for me to feel that so many people have my back right now." So I think that's really important. Can we throw this conversation out to our audience now? Do we have any questions? James was handling questions.
We sure do. Yeah. So Adam Fox is wonderful. Adam Fox is asking, we'd love to hear from the panelists from the other cities and specifically, or in particular, about their experience gaining support for live music venues from public entities. Are there any strategies for municipal and regional governments to support and to help keep things going in terms of sponsorship, or are there other strategies in private support that you could shed some light on?
Would you like to start, Erica? Do you have a thought?
Sure. Well, some of that I described in support from private entity, the car dealership who came on board for us. But I think we were very active. We got 15 venues together and we're active in inspiring a conversation with our city officials and really trying to, sort of get a squeaky wheel thing going. And of course, Nashville is a tourism-based city like New Orleans. And I loved hearing, Micah, what you said, it's in my notes about how to shift from a tourism base to a locally supported base. And I think in a lot of ways, Nashville, everybody takes it for granted. And so to put that out there physically, we had commercials, we had radio that was brought on board to put these, public service announcements out from the venues, talking about, these venues might go away. These venues signify Nashville, and people need to be aware of what that loss might look like in the big picture if these venues start crashing and burning. That was one public way that we sort of approached our local government.
Is there a website for that group, the 15 venues?
Yes. I think it's MVAN, Music Venue Association of Nashville, but I can also send that to everybody and make sure that you get that, Meg, so that you can let our listeners or folks see that.
Thank you. Did you have anything to add, Micah?
It's been really complicated in New Orleans. I'm just going to be blunt. New Orleans is a city, a great city with a Louisiana problem. We live, in a state that, fortunately, our governor has been amazing with COVID safety, but a lot of the folks in the state have been very resistant to safety protocols. So the pushback has made it very difficult for local officials to really move forward. So there is a bit of division, and there's a split on how we should even look at COVID, right? Which I think is really hamstringing what we can do as a community. Something that Benny was saying, coming together and actually being there for each other is the most important thing that we can do at this point. And so it's really going to depend on that.
Thank you. Another question, James.
Yes, for sure. Pardeep Such is commented that one of the biggest roadblocks, sorry, I just got to find it here as I go. One of the biggest roadblocks is attention span of viewers. And as we go to live stream, attention span, even on social media, just seems to be shorter and shorter with people hopping in and out. What are people doing, or are there suggestions or thoughts about how live music comes into this, but also meets that ability to retain viewership for longer? Any thoughts on that topic?
Just put your hand up if you'd like to answer. Pat. One sec. Your sound on?
Sorry, I didn't know I was in charge of unmuting myself.
Okay.
Otherwise, no one would let me talk if that was the case. But no, I noticed early on, like I touched on earlier with people live streaming from their home and that sort of thing without a small audience participation. So I think, venues that do have the space available, and like I said, during the pandemic, I haven't been opening till 4 o'clock. So I've been letting people come in and live stream from here, and even coming in, as late as just before the show. Just even like during the shutdown when we weren't allowed to be open, you were allowed to have, I think, 20 people as in a gathering, which before everything went to hell was fine. But I thought it was important that there was an audience there, because the first show we did, I invited 15 people down, and just that alone I think made people pay attention a lot more. They felt like they were watching a concert. We all watched The Last Waltz and a whole bunch of live concerts that were basically movie length, but they were concerts. And they're much more enjoyable when there's audience participation. If we watch the band just playing there and people coming out in silence afterwards, it gets boring. And I'm not saying you got to have a balloon clown blowing up balloons in between songs, but I think it's important that you do engage the audience and talk to them, and that that alone, and there's always, when you live stream, there's a donate button, and I'm not saying that anyone's going to get rich off of that, but the first one we did, and being a rookie at all this, I'm a technological idiot. I can't even manipulate this page here, but we raised about $2,200 from donations without anybody, that's without any of the 15 invited guests. So, I mean, bands got paid that day, which is extremely important to consider it. And then there's also, what?
Shout out to Stagehand.
Okay, I'm about to. But there, I have a prompter. There's also we've been working with a group called Stagehand. You grab me one of those things? And so people in the room, we're down from 150 to 50 people. So there are people who might have a few deeper pockets and that sort of thing that are actually with their live shows coming in and, paying the cover charge, but they know that we're at 1/3 capacity. And the other day we had a show here with Jens Lindemann, world-renowned trumpet player. I think we had 14 wind instruments on the stage with the bell condoms on, and that worked out great. But in addition to the money that we charged at the door with the 50 people in the room, people could click on this, and all you have to do is run your phone on it, or there is a QR code, and those are things that so there was $2,000 in donations just in the room, where people are there, this is awesome, I want to support music, and they run their phone over it and just can hit the donate button. So there's all sorts of revenue streams there, and I know that with venues being so under capacity, there's an apology fest at the end of every show where, I'm sorry, this is as much money as I can give you, and they're saying, no, I want you to take a cut of it, and I'm saying, no, I don't want a cut. So I mean, it's kind of nice to have an extra revenue stream where you can get the artists the money that they deserve, and whoop-de-doo. If they want to only charge $15 to get in, then that's fine. But if you're sitting there and you go, I love this, I want to continue to hear it, then you can donate more money. So giving people options to dig deeper.
So in case you
everyone's hurting, so you're gonna base it a little bit, right? You're gonna bring it down or just bring it up slightly. But there are people that do have deeper pockets, and give them the opportunity to be generous.
Yeah, that's terrific, Pat. And if you missed that, the app is Stagehand. Rob, is it stagehand.app? Stagehand.app, and it's a Calgary developed website that connects venues and artists. So they have probably over 1,000 artists registered on the site, and venues can actually book their artists totally through Stagehand, and it's proven handy during these times as well as when the venues themselves are operating. In good times on Music Mile, there are up to 20 venues, over 50 live shows a week. Now we're down to the solid big three and a couple of others. So things have changed, but there is still music happening here, we're happy to say.
I just wanted to,
I just wanted to ask the audience, we're running out of time. We go to 1:15 and we do need 5 minutes for a bit of a wrap up. I'm loving this conversation, but we're not getting enough of the audience in. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to come on camera and make some comments? Matt Masters, maybe.
Just nobody from the New Yorker.
Oh, they're here.
this question might actually, if nice segue with Stagehand, but Derek Mans from Stagehand had already asked a question, and it might take us to the end, but I think it's worth asking. And panelists, if you want to open up the Q&A too, there are a couple of live questions about music advocacy and stuff. If you want to just answer them on the fly, that might save some time. But Derek wanted to know if anyone wanted to take a shot at what music infrastructure really looks like. What are we saying? What constitutes the infrastructure for live music in some of your opinions? And that might take us to the end, I hope, but let's see what we can get.
Just raise your hand if you'd like to answer.
Anyone?
Anyone? Derek, you're going to have to tell us your answer.
I would agree.
Derek Mans is the fellow who developed Stagehand and a huge asset to Calgary.
So the question is, what is the state of the music industry right now?
No, what is the live music infrastructure? How would you describe it?
So I have just one thought on it, is I think it really comes back down to this collaboration we're talking about and lines of communication. There's the infrastructure is there. There are people doing good things. We have to coordinate it and make sure that we're working together efficiently in a coordinated way within the ecosystem. Obviously, we can look for weaknesses in that infrastructure. So if it means we're lacking industry or artist opportunities, then maybe we need to look at focused energy there to see how we bolster that so that we're working more efficiently as that ecosystem together. But the infrastructure is within the venues. It's the work Benny does with up and coming musicians. It's with our funding agency. It's how we all work together. So they are there. Some areas are weaker than others, but I do really think that there needs to be more coordination done so that we are really leveraging our music industry as much as we can as a economic driver for this province, but also a cultural driver and just making, Calgary a great place to live.
And thank you for taking the lead in that work, Kaylee. We had a couple of questions on Q&A.
Actually, Lucy Pasternak wants to say a few words if possible.
Yes, hi, Lucy.
Hi everyone. Thanks for being here today. This is really useful and interesting stuff. I mostly just wanted to let everyone know that we just finished an online national jazz festival that was 16 jazz festivals in Canada took part in, and it started on November 8th and it finished on Sunday, the 15th. And each night there was 2 presentations from 2 different festivals, and you can see most of them still. The website is cojazz.ca. But what we're doing now, we launched today, is a post-festival survey. And so each festival is sending out to their mailing list, each festival can only send to a maximum of 3,000 people on their mailing list. This digital survey that's actually been designed by Stone Olofsson, and they're a research company here in Calgary, and we are wanting to share the results of that research with any organization who is interested in having them. And I'm not sure exactly when the results will be in and kind of like sorted through, but anyone who wants them, basically feel free to email me and I can send out our reports when they're finished. I'll type my email address into the chat to everybody, and but I think we're going to get some quite interesting results because we're going to be asking them questions that have been raised here today about what their attention span is and what would they want to pay for, and just everything about their overall experience. So
that was one thing that I just wanted to tie back to the question before about, this audience fatigue and virtual programming. I think it's really important to think about the overall experience of what you're asking people to pay for and how do you personalize it. And I think people are coming up with really creative ways to think about the entire experience of an online viewing or music experience and what could that look like. So that's just an add-on.
Quick tidbit, something that I did and that we've been doing with our artists is we have prize giveaways. So normally when the artist is performing or they're releasing their song, they are actually talking and engaging with their audience. They're going through who's in the chat, they're talking to them, and then they're doing the prize giveaway, they're doing a little mini whatever, just to keep people engaged, because even if people are in the venue, sometimes you're not paying attention. So the whole button seats and I need to pay attention because I will get rewarded for doing so is something to be cognizant of. So yeah, that's just my last little cherry on top.
Did you say there were prizes?
Prizes, yeah. So like they reached out to different like companies and organizations in the cities, gift cards, clothing, that kind of stuff, you know, and good prizes, not like little small keychains and stuff, but like actual like trips somewhere or whatever. So it's worthwhile. Not only are you supporting that artist, but you're also like in it for yourself too. So that is something that is.
What are the prizes given for? What does the audience person need to do to win a prize?
Oh, I mean, there's different things. There's like maybe they corresponded some like social media stuff before the actual live. So maybe they were supposed to post something in their story or tag them on an actual feed post. And then during the actual live, and they go to their Instagram and be like, oh, here we go. Like it's posted, you win or whatever. Or there'd be like a game show trivia kind of question, whoever answered it first. And then in those lives, like sometimes I'll just be the host for them, for the artists. So I'll be the host and I'll talk to the people in the chat and see who's there. And so there's small different ways you can be interactive. It's not necessarily the same thing as having a glass of wine and just watching the show. But at the same time, you can have your glass of wine in your pajamas and go to the bathroom and come back and, you know, do whatever you want.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's very smart.
Fantastic. James, is there anything else you wanted to bring up from the Q&A, or shall we? It's getting to be, we're at 1:11 and we said we'd finish by 1:15. I don't know about you, but I could go on for a long time.
Actually, I did want to throw one question that came from Bob, and it's a great question. He's asking about, is there an equivalent organization in New Orleans or Nashville like the Music Mile? Do you have an organization that advocates for all the music districts in your areas?
Yeah, and I actually just typed the reply there, but MACNO is Music and Culture Coalition of New Orleans, and you know, they advocate for us as musicians and are regularly meeting with local officials on safety protocols and paths forward. So you can go to macno.com, MACCNO.com.
Thanks, Micah.
And I just posted the NVAN link as well for our venue association in Nashville that's doing very similar to what Mike is talking about.
Perfect.
And one of the people we tried to have on the panel was Cody Cowan from Austin, who he runs the Red River Cultural District, and he just couldn't fit it into his schedule, but he sent me a note this morning saying that he really wished he could have been part of the conversation. But I would strongly recommend that we all look at that website too. It's interesting to see the Bluebird Cafe website, but the Red River Cultural District, I mean, there's lots to learn just from what they're doing, what they show that they're doing on their website. And I'm sure they're doing a lot more than that. James, can I turn it over to you to wrap up today?
So thank you everyone on the panel. We'd like to thank Pat, Kaylee, and Benny, of course, and Mika and Erica. Thank you so very much for your insight today and your thinking. The Music Mile, of course, is as an advocacy group is still, and a board still trying to work out where we fit into the arena of thriving music industry and music business. And so we've been very excited to provide these town halls, and we've also been excited to listen to everybody so that we can figure out ways that our knowledge and our experiences can help even past just the immediate. So thank you all for supporting us and coming to these town halls. We want to keep doing them, and we hope that we do find them useful for all of us, because we all are in the same boat. So moving forward in terms of our advocacy, we run board meetings once a month, and we've been running stakeholder meetings. So that's businesses and community members and artists that want to participate and know what's happening on the Music Mile and how they can help. We're going to combine those meetings into one meeting starting in December. So we'll get the next date for that. If any of you would like to attend, we'd love to have you join us, and hopefully we can move this conversation forward and just keep thinking of ways that we can continue to try to hang on or thrive in this live music situation as guidelines shift and change every day. So yeah, if you're interested in the stakeholder meeting, please contact us at info@musicmile.ca if you don't join us already. And we hope to see you there in December. Once
Thanks,
again,
everyone.
thank you very much, everyone. Is there any last thoughts from our panel today? No? Then we'll bid you adieu. And thanks, everyone. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Meg.
Great meeting you.
Yes, wonderful.
Can I just ask one more question?
Of course you can.
Would you like to continue these conversations? And especially people in the audience, how can we stay engaged with you? Is there something you feel like you'd like to contribute to Music Mile, or would you like to have more conversations like this? Would you like to carry this topic on, or do you have suggestions for other topics for our next town hall? We'd be happy to hear from you either right now or type it to us or whatever.
Sounds good. I'll send our email and our website as well.
Okay, we didn't hear from Matt Masters, and I really wanted to. Matt Masters, look up curbside concerts in Calgary. Matt has been doing these concerts where he's got his band on the top of his van, a little stage built on the top of his van, and he goes to people's homes and serenades them. He's got lots of musicians across the country doing that now. So another little idea for you. All ideas welcome. Send them anytime to info@musicmile.ca, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. It was very useful having you here. Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, Meg. Thanks, Rob.
You betcha.
Thanks, Rob. We did not acknowledge you at all.
I got a shout out from Pat, so that's good enough.
Who needs anything more?
Right? That's all I need.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Take care, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Yeah.
Are we the only two left, or are there any audience members left?
No, there's still a few.
If anybody else wants a last word, we'll take notes.
There's Tina twice.
Tina? Hi, Tina. Can you unmute yourself, Tina? Hi, Adam. You can unmute yourself too. We can have an actual conversation.
Oh.
Turn your camera on, Tina. I haven't seen you forever.
Hold on. I need to.
Hello.
Hi.
How's it going?
You tell us. Oh, hi, Gavin.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
I was wondering if that was...
He was in, but then he was gone. Okay.
Gavin, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, we lost Gavin.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for that.
Oh, no, you're there.
I was curious a little bit.
No.
What's that?
And when you were
No, Gavin is actually speaking.
Okay.
one, then we had all the
Go ahead, Gavin.
bottom. There they are. More.
I was curious about going forward with continuing the conversation in terms of startups and entrepreneurial support for the music industry. I started a small production called the Stained Glass Social over the summer. We did an online virtual concert. And so it's a production that I'd like to have a future with. Right now, obviously, doing a business plan and a cash flow forecast is a little difficult with the changing regulation and that kind of that. A little bit on the back burner. I'm a little bit uncertain as to what a full launch would look like. So, I mean, if that's something that you guys have insight into or are interested in discussing in terms of bringing another player onto the scene here in Calgary, I'd certainly love to chat further with you.
No, let's have a phone conversation because we do have some ideas.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'll just give you the phone number right now. Have you got a pen handy?
Sure, yeah, let me, I've got a computer, just hold on a sec. Okay, go ahead.
403 464
Yeah,
2371.
464.
And your event is